Okay, so there's a verse that says in Tehillim, the verse says as follows. The verse in Tehillim says, Yasichu v'yoshev sha'ar, those who sit by my gate talk about me. On ginot shoteh shechar, and make up drinking songs of drunkards. So the Midrash Necha explains this verse as follows. It says, Yasichu b'yoshvei sha'ar, those who sit by the gate talk about me. What is it referring to? This is referring to Israel, Bnei Israel, who sit in synagogues and study houses and make up drinking songs of drunkards. What does that mean? It means that the Jews sit down, they eat and drink to their satisfaction at the Tisha B'Av meal. So what does it mean? It's saying that the Jewish people sit in study houses and learn. Okay, and Hashem is praising them. David HaMelech is praising them for this. And they also sit, eat on Tisha B'Av and mourn and cry a song of mourning. So the commentaries explain that it doesn't literally mean that they eat and drink on Tisha B'Av. It means it's referring to the fast of before Tisha B'Av. The meal before Tisha B'Av. There's two meals. There's one meal called Seudat Mafseket. That's the meal that we try to eat less than 2 cooked items. We eat very little, like mourners on the floor. But there's another meal previous to that, which we eat a lot, and we fill ourselves up. So the Midrash is saying that these people, they energize themselves. They eat a lot, right? Before the Tisha B'Av, before the fast. And on the fast day, they sit and they mourn. They recite laments, songs of wailing for the books of Echad. It's called the Book of Lamentations. Okay, so they do that in order to mourn, in order to be able to cry properly over the Bet HaMikdash. So, but how do you explain that? It says mishtakrin, it says they get drunk. So they explain, no, getting drunk doesn't literally mean getting drunk before Tisha B'Av, because we know the meal before Tisha B'Av cannot contain any meat nor wine. So what are they doing? Getting drunk means they're getting satisfied. Mishtakrin in Hebrew has a definition of they're filling themselves up, they're satisfying themselves up, they are making themselves full in order to be able to have a good fast. So the Dubna Magid asks a very big question. He says, what do you mean? You eat a lot before the fast? For what reason? You're going to feel full on the fast? You're not going to feel any pain. What's the point? So the Dubna Magid explains very nicely. He says that people have suffering. Imagine a poor person. He has suffering day to day. He has a problem here. He has a problem there. He's stricken with hunger. He has a different problem that he doesn't have enough money to pay for his debts, okay? And then you tell him, oh, there's another trouble that's coming. Or somebody died in his family. He's not going to have the energy to sit and cry. He cries every day, he has no more tears. He cries every day for all his troubles. So you're giving him another trouble? Okay, he's going to cry a little bit maybe what he has, when he's with his little energy, he's going to cry. He says here, the same thing with us. We consistently have troubles in our lives. We consistently mourn. We consistently have tragedies, God forbid, right? So when we're going to come and say, oh, now mourn over the temple, we're not going to have energy. So Hashem says, you know what? The Midrash is saying, fill yourselves up. We're telling the poor person, who is us in this parable, eat up, fill yourself up, satisfy yourself. So when you come to the morning's level, you'll have energy to think and contemplate about the actual Bet HaMikdash, to think about the troubles, to think about that person who died, to know what you're mourning for. Because if we're going to be hungry, we're not going to be thinking about it all the time. So we satisfy ourselves. We do have a little hunger, but we're not totally knocked out. So we're able to sit, we're able to think about what happened in the Bet HaMikdash, we're able to give our energy and do teshuvah, because that is the point of a fast, to do teshuvah and to think about what happened on this day. So, this is the non-literal translation of the Midrash, because we said that getting drunk means getting full. And we said Tisha B'Av doesn't literally mean on, it means before. But there's another interpretation of another commentator. He says, no, this pasuk that says that they eat on Tisha B'Av, it really means they eat on Tisha B'Av. And it really means they get drunk at Tisha B'Av and mourn. When? During the second Bet HaMikdash, when Tisha B'Av came, Tisha B'Av wasn't actually a holiday. Why? Because on this day, they can't mourn over the Bet HaMikdash in a full sense, because the Bet HaMikdash is there. So they're going to mourn, cry over the first Bet HaMikdash. When the second Bet HaMikdash is there, that's showing that they're not appreciative of what happened. So what would they do? He says over here, this commentator says that they would sit down, they would have a huge meal, they would get drunk, meaning they would drink wine, and only afterwards, and this is on Tisha B'Av, only afterwards would they sit down and they would weep, mourn, and say the kinot of Tisha B'Av, of the day of Av, for the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash. So they were playing two roles in their lives. They weren't on one stage. They were on two different stages. They were playing two different roles. And it says that youth might think, let's think right now, we think that this is like a bad thing, because you're mourning and you're happy. Make up your mind. Do one day for mourning, one day for happiness. It says no. Actually, their mourning was a complete mourning. What does that mean? When they had the first Bet HaMikdash was taken away from them, everybody was crying. Everybody knew the loss that they didn't have. There was no more Shekhinah. There was no more Bet HaMikdash. There was no more third temple. There was no more, the temple was no more there. There was no more revelation of Hashem. So, everybody understood the loss. But when the second HaMikdash was rebuilt, they were thinking to themselves, or we would have thought, they have no reason to be mourning. They have no reason to be sad. Why? Because it's there. The second Bet HaMikdash is there. They have nice lives again. You know, they have their kings who are ruling over Am Yisrael. They're ruling over the nations around them. Nobody's trying to come and destroy the Bet HaMikdash. Nobody's trying to come and put a siege around Yerushalayim. They're living the good life. But in actual, they understood that compared to the first Bet HaMikdash, the second Bet HaMikdash was a joke. Meaning, the Shekhinah and the fire that would come down would not come down anymore on a daily basis. They would have to light it. Okay, the Urim and Tumim, the chest plate that the Kohen HaGadol had, was not giving any more messages. Okay, there was no real prophecy that was consistent. So they had a lot lost from the first Bet HaMikdash, from the second Bet HaMikdash to the first Bet HaMikdash. So those people sat down and they were mourning over real spiritual loss. Because they had a physical gain. They weren't outside of Israel, they were in Israel. They had all the physical pleasures they needed. But they understood into depth, in reality, the spiritual loss that they had from the first temple. So their mourning was a real mourning. This could apply to people today also. People who enjoy, nowadays, we're in Galut, right? Galut is so nice. Everybody has a home. We all have our own, accounts. We could manage our businesses. Everybody has things that everyone has their physical pleasures that they enjoy. And those people, even though in the time of this physical pleasures, understand the spiritual, right? What they're missing spiritually, and they mourn over the second Bet HaMikdash, so those people are called the real mourners. They're called the people who really mourn for the Bet HaMikdash. Their mourning is considered in the eyes of Hashem the greatest. So, again, in the Midrash it says, they would eat, they would enjoy, they would have pleasure, and then they would say, okay, let's get to reality now. There are some spiritual, and a lot of spiritual things that we don't have from the first Bet HaMikdash, and they would start mourning. That is the second way to interpret the Midrash. So, really, what is the gain by doing a lot of mourning, and by regretting, and by feeling the loss of the second temple? It says that anybody who mourns over the destruction of the temple, It says, Zoche v'ro'eh b'vinyana. He will merit, he will see in its when it's going to be reconstructed, and he's going to see its happiness. Zoche v'ro'eh b'simchata. Okay, he will see its full happiness, its full glory. He will merit to see it. The truth is that people who don't mourn over the Beit HaMikdash, when you see that we had 3 Shabbatot, where the Shabbatot in the Haftarah, it was called Shabbatot de Pur'anuta. We were reading things of Pur'anut, of tragedies. In the Haftarah, it was all talking about tragedies. Coming up now from this Shabbat, Nachamu and on, are 7 Shabbatot of comfort. Those people who really did not have pain and didn't feel the tragedies that were happening or happened in the time of the temple, during the 7 weeks of comfort, it doesn't mean much to them. It didn't affect them, the loss, and the gain won't affect them either. So only somebody who really was mourning, who really was uncomfortable, when they will be comfort, he will feel it, and it will be easy on his body, it will be easy on his soul. Wow, it's really relaxing. So that is the important thing that we're going to read over here by Mincha soon. We're going to read the paragraphs of Nachamu, different paragraphs in this Haftarah of this week. We're also going to read the whole Haftarah of comfort. People who really had a hard time and really mourned over the temple, those are people who are going to be really comforted to the full extent. So, talking about comfort, the whole Tisha B'Av, we're talking about tragedies. We're talking about the importance of sinat, of loving a fellow Jew. There's a very interesting midrash that speaks about the end of days, how Hashem promises Rachel Imenu, Rachel our mother, that we will deserve to have. So I decided to focus on this because it's almost towards the end of the fast. We're a few hours away. So let's start talking about, like we're going to be doing by Mincha, we're going to be talking about comfort, we're going to be talking about things that bring back our soul ease and the good side of actually Tisha B'Av, what's going to be coming up. The Midrash says that as the destruction of the temple was going on, Hashem sees, he says to his malachim, let's go down and see how my Jewish people are being kicked out of their temple, out of their land, how the walls of my house are falling down, how everything is on fire. Actually, the real fire was happening around this time at Mincha. When the actual fire was catching on, the real burning down was happening around this time. And he says, let us go and see. And the malachim go down, he says, this is it. I don't doubt it. This is the temple. This is my house. And he sees all the Jews being exiled, chained up, and being taken away. He says to his malachim, don't just stand here. Go and wake up the forefathers. Go and wake up their forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe Rabbeinu. Wake them up. Maybe they will be able to cry. Maybe they will be able to change something in this judgment that I have made upon my sons, that I have judged upon my children. So the Midrash goes on to say the Malachim went, and one by one the forefathers get up and they see the tragedy that is happening from above, and they're going crazy. They're going out of their mind, and each one is screaming in a way towards Hashem and saying, how could he do this? Each one has a certain ta'ana. How do you say ta'ana? He has a certain excuse, a certain reason, argument why it's unfair what's happening to the Jewish people. We're going to go one by one. I'm cutting it short, and we're going to see the final word of Hashem. Avraham Avinu says, Ribono shel olam, le'me'ah shana natata li ben. Hashem says, Avraham says, in front of Hashem, Master of the world, for 100 years you gave me a son. And when he was finally old enough, and he was mature, and I would actually, enjoy learning with him, discussing with him, somebody is here, my offspring that I can be proud of. He says, you told me to go bring him up as a sacrifice. Where? In this very place that is the Beit HaMikdash is standing on. And on this place is where I took my son, my only son, the beloved son. I went and I'm bringing him up to sacrifice for you. How could it be that in this same place you're going to go and exile my children? How could it be that in this same place you're going to go and destroy the whole glory of Bnei Israel, the whole Bet HaMikdash. You're going to take them out of the place where I sacrificed my blood, where I sacrificed my son, my work? No answer. Yitzchak Avinu comes, one by one. Yitzchak began to speak and he said, Ribono shel olam, lo 20 shana amata bebet Lavan. I'm sorry. Ribono shel olam. He says, when my father told me, I asked my father, who will be the sacrifice when we were walking to the Har HaMoreh, where the Akedah was supposed to be? My father said, God will show us the sacrifice. Yitzchak wasn't dumb. He understood it was him. He said, I could have ran away. I could have even tried to kill my father because he's trying to kill me. I'm saying he's trying to sacrifice me. No. I right away went and followed him. And not only that, when I went on top of this altar, I told my father, tighten me up, that I shouldn't make a move, that it should be a clean slaughter, it should be a clean cut. He says, for this thing, I gave up my life. Literally, I thought I was going to die. I took everything, I was going to give up all my physicality. You're going to destroy the Jews, you're going to destroy my children, my offspring, the place where I was giving up my life. How will you not have mercy on your children? You didn't have mercy on me, Hashem, and I still went through your word. So have mercy on your children. Where is your act of mercy? Kindness. Yaakov Avinu comes and says also. Obviously, Avraham Avinu didn't reply to Yitzchak either. Comes along Yaakov and he tells him, Ribono shel olam, lo 20 shana amati bebet Lavan, uksheyatzati mibeto paga bi Esav harasha. He says, 20 years I was in the house of Lavan. And when I came out, who tries to kill me? Esav. Another tragedy, another challenge. And he tried to kill me, he tried to kill my sons. He says, and I was willing to die for my sons. I put myself first. I wanted to die for my sons. Just that they should live, they should continue on. And says now they're being put by their enemies like sheep. Being slaughtered for sheep being slaughtered. He says, not only that, he says, I raised my children with such suffering. Reuven went against my word. Yosef was taken away from me. My entire life was agony. I was just suffering with these kids, raising them in such in a hard way. These kids that I raised are for nothing. Their descendants are being destroyed. What was the whole purpose of having Am Yisrael if not to be in the Bet HaMikdash? You're going to take that away from me? All that toil, all that hardship that I went through? Hashem didn't answer him either. The last one that came was Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Master of the world, I was the most trustworthy shepherd you had. I led Bnei Israel, the flock of sheep, through the desert. He says, I was running in front of them like a horse. I did everything they can that they should stay there. I begged you to save them and not kill them and destroy them all. They should come into the land of Israel. And when I wanted to come to the land of Israel, you said, you can't come in. They will go and you can't come in. But when they are being kicked out of exile, you wake me up. You say, come and see your children being exiled. I have to suffer with them, but I cannot enjoy with them. How do you allow them to suffer? Fine, don't give me the pleasure of going to Israel, but don't give me the suffering of seeing them exiled. Also, Hashem didn't give a response. He didn't respond. Hashem hears and doesn't respond. It hurts Hashem. Hashem before was also crying, how could it be? My children, how do they deserve this? But right now he's trying to see what are the arguments of each one in order to save their lives, in order to come with a conclusion that Bnei Israel will merit to some redemption. It says, Be'ota sha'a, finally, at that time, Rachel, Imenu, came before her and she jumped up before Hashem. She showed herself up and she said, Ribono shel olam, galu lefanecha she'Yaakov avdecha ahavani ahava yitera ve'avad b'shvili le'aba 7 shanim. Rachel was saying, Yaakov Avinu really loved me. And he worked for me for 7 years. And when those years finished, Lavan, my father, came. He made a whole plot, how he's going to give Leah over to Yaakov. And she said, and what did I do? She said, at first, the Midrash says that she was aware of what was going on. So she came to Yaakov and said, okay, I'm going to give you signs. We're going to make sign between us that you should know that it's really me, and don't fall for the plot of Lavan switching Leah for Rachel, for me. Yaakov agreed. And then she said, I felt remorse. The Midrash says she felt remorse. And she said, I'm really going to go and not give, and going to fight over my sister. I'm not going to do what, she says, I'm going to leave, how could I leave my sister to disgrace? Because obviously the people are going to find out and it's going to leave her to disgrace. I'm not going to let it happen. So she says, I went that night and I gave over all the signs to my sister Leah. Right? This way he won't think it's Rachel, and he won't come, and she won't come to him, be embarrassed, to be feeling uncomfortable. So we have to understand this thing that Rachel did was basically saying, I'm accepting it that Yaakov should marry my sister. And not only that, but let's say one day he will come to marry me, because Yaakov was allowed to marry, they were allowed to marry 2 wives. She's going to be my co-wife. And in Hebrew, in the Gemara terms, it's called a tzara, a trouble, pain. That's what a co-wife is called. Each one is competing over the other to try to get her husband's attention. So she was basically setting herself up in trouble for the entire life, for her entire life. And she wasn't going to embarrass her sister. She was going to go with the plan all the way. And it says here that she not only did she give the signs, she went under the bed. And when Yaakov asked Leah for the signs, she gave him the signs one by one. She spoke. Leah was quiet. And Yaakov thought this was Rachel. So what's her point? Her point is as follows. We're going to read it inside. And I extended kindness to her. I was not jealous of her, and I did not cause her to get disgraced. She says, and now me, that I am flesh and blood, shani basar v'dam afar v'efer, made out of dust and earth. I did not have jealousy over my co-wife, over my going to be co-wife of my sister, and let her take over the main position as being Yaakov's wife. You, Ve'ata melechai v'kayim rachaman, you are merciful, Almighty King. Why did he destroy the first temple, Hashem? Because there was avodah zarah. It angered him that they were worshiping other idols. You're going to get angry over worshiping idols? Meaning another God in your realm, on your level. That's how they were serving him. I gave up, and I was not jealous of my sister, which was a true jealousy, which is a nature of a woman to be jealous of. And you are angry at Am Yisrael for choosing another God, which have nothing with these gods don't exist. In the end, they will know that it's you. Why are you bringing out so much wrath against Bnei Israel? Why are you going so full force? And you have exiled my children. They have been killed by the sword. And the enemies have done with them as they please. Doesn't make sense, Hashem. That's how Rachel screams out. So it says, right away Hashem's mercy filled up. And he said the following. Bishvilech Rachel, ani machzir et Yisrael imkoman. He said, for you, Rachel, I will bring Am Yisrael back to their holy land, to their place. How do we know that? It says in the Pasuk, Ko amar Adonai kol v'rama nishma nehi v'chi tamurim Rachel mevaka al banea me'ana linachem al banea ki enenu. That's it is written. It says that Rachel, there was a kol barama, there was a big loud voice, wailing cry. And Rachel was crying over her children. She was not going to get comforted. She said, no way. I'm going to fight for this till the end. And it says, Hashem replies to her and says, Ko amar Hashem mi kolech mi bechi. Stop your crying. Stop your wailing. Wipe your eyes from tear, because there will be reward for what you did. For this thing, for your accomplishment in giving over the signs to Leah, for your accomplishment, you conquered your desire You waited for Yaakov to marry Leah. There will be hope for your future. You conquered your desire, you held yourself down, you said, no, I have hope for my future also. I will not embarrass another person because I am not succeeding now. So in the future, your children will have hope also. And they will come back to the land of Israel. It's a promise. The Midrash brings down the story that Hashem promises and says to Rachel. In the Psukim it's brought down that we will be coming back to the land of Israel, that we will be having the rebuilding of the temple, and that all of Am Yisrael will be back in Eretz Yisrael. All the children will be back to see the glory of their Father Hashem. One last thing before we finish. Rabbi Saadia Gaon, he was a big rabbi who lived in the times of the Geonim, which is around 1,000 or more years ago. At those times, they asked him to make a calculation when Mashiach is going to come. He gives them an around calculation, which was already passed according to his knowledge. But he told them words of comfort, and this is what he told them. He said, listen, Hashem said 2 words to Avraham Avinu, Dan Anochi. I will judge the nation. I will judge your offsprings. For those 2 words, we suffered slavery for 210 years. We had Dan Anochi was going on the Mitzrim. Hashem said to Avraham Avinu, Dan Anochi, that nation that will enslave the Bnei Israel, I will judge them. What will the judgment be? 10 makot, according to some opinion 50 makot, like we read in the Haggadah of Pesach. And in the Yam, on the sea, there was makot, some say 50, some say 200, 250. Hashem lashed out of the Mitzrim. He leapt out of the enemy from 2 words. I will judge them. I will judge the Egyptians. I will judge the nation that enslaves Am Yisrael. Says Rabbi Saadia Gaon, isn't it more powerful? All the promises that Hashem gives us in the words of the prophets, all the words of comfort, all the words of hope that we have in the words of the prophecy that say Hashem will bring us back, like we have one of these right now. Hashem will bring us back. Hashem will restore the temple. There will be a 3rd Beit HaMikdash. There is a description of the 3rd Beit HaMikdash that will stay forever. In 2 words, Hashem did so much to our enemies and brought us back to the land of Israel. How more so, through so many words of Hashem, through His prophets, will we be deserving of the final redemption. In Mincha, we're going to end with this. We're going to read the following verse. It says, "Ashivem el neve kodsham, mitalfim behamonam." I will bring them back to the glory of the temple, to their holy land. Holy land. Kodsham means holy, holy land. Mitalfim behamonam. They will be fainting. Multiple people will be fainting. My Rosh Yeshiva said something very interesting. He said that the Rabbi Saadia Gaon was talking about, how in the end of days, so many of the words of the prophets will come to true. So many of the words of the prophet, so many prophecies that we see in the redemption, about the redemption, will be so powerful, and we will see with our own eyes. This we saw before already. We saw it a few years ago, more than a few years ago, around 60 years ago, when 67, 67, when the state of Israel was established. They had a whole mission of bringing in the Yemenite Jewish people. And there it says as follows, it didn't say, but we saw that the Yemenite people, when they came off the plains and they landed onto Eretz Yisrael, onto the land of Israel, the old men, especially everyone, bowed down. They kissed the Holy Land, and there were some people, most of the old people amongst them, who all their life yearned to see the 3rd Beit HaMikdash. They yearned to see the Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land. They were always talking about it. They always had this agony. They always had this hope for the land of Israel. When they bowed down to kiss the land, they just laid flat. They never got up again. Nobody cried over them. Nobody mourned over them, because they merited to see the land of Eretz Israel a moment before they died. And there were those who fainted. And right away they got them back. They were unconscious and they right away got them back. They gave them water. They revived them. And that's what it says here. I will bring them back to their holy land, to the holy site of Israel. They will be fainting, multiple people fainting. That is this nevuah, this comfort that we see that we're going to be reading today by Mincha, actually happened. That people fainted when they saw Eretz Israel. We can't understand it today, but in those days, that's how much they had it in their hearts, how much they were yearning for it. And Be'ezrat Hashem, may we all come back to see Eretz Israel, to see the Bet HaMikdash being brought down from Shamayim, because Hashem said, in fire I have destroyed the temple, and through fire, they explain that means from heaven, I will bring it and rebuild it. Be'ezrat Hashem in our days. Thank you very much.